Hi, welcome to the So Sweet Bakery. What can I do you for? Hi there, so many choices. Let me have the powdered, please. Sure thing, coming right up. All right, here you go. Awesome, thank you so much. Have a good day. And here it is, my So Sweet Bakery treat. Let's take a look inside and see what we've got. Well, first of all, we have our clue, and I already spot something different. It looks like I have gotten a large clue. I thought it would be doing the small clue, but it looks like I have the pieces for, at least from the instructions here, it looks like I have the large clue. Let's go ahead and see what else we've got. We of course have our fabric guide. Make sure to take a picture of this with your cell phone, so that way if you end up misplacing this, you will know you'll still have your fabric guide. This also has all the information for, this is my colorway, which is powdered, but of course it has all sorts of great information inside of it. So make sure to hold on to this and keep this, so that way you always have it available when you're ready to sew on your clue. And then here is my fabric packet. I'm going to go ahead and set the box out of the way, and I can already see we have some goodies in this bag. So here is clue 1 for the 2022 Spring Puzzle Mystery Quilt, So Sweet, in the colorway of powdered. I'm going to go ahead and open this up and we'll see what's included inside. Okay, first of all, we've got our pins, and if they're anything like the original pins that Cotton Cuts put out, I freaking love. These are some of the best pins. If you haven't boosted your boxes or packages with these pins, I highly recommend them. I don't know why they write so well, but I freaking love them. Looks like these might be different pins, but they've got the nice grip on them, and they're fun colors as well, so I love these. I'm gonna go ahead and set those off to the side, and there's a lot of fabric here. Let's go ahead and see what all is included in our first packet. All right, I've got 12 small triangles of A fabric. I've got 8 small triangles of fabric D. I've got 4 small squares of fabric A. I have 4 small squares of fabric C. I have 20, wow, is that all 20? Or is this more? I think this might be, yep, this is more. Is there any more? Oh, yep, some more here. Is that all of them? I don't even know if that is all of them. I think that's all of them. Goodness gracious. Okay, so I have 20, wow, 20 large triangles of D fabric. I also have 16 large triangles of A fabric. Also included is 4 large triangles of B fabric. I have 4 squares of B fabric. I have 16 large squares. I think I said both B is large and A of large. So 16 large A squares and 4 large B squares. And last but certainly not least, we have, which one is this? This is D fabric, and we have 4 rectangles of D fabric. Well, looky what I found. If you were wondering why I didn't mention fabric F, it's because it was attached to some other fabric, so I didn't even notice it. So we have 4, in addition to all the other fabrics that I had just here, we do have 4 small triangles of fabric F, and I'm sorry that I neglected to mention them. I just didn't find them until later. So there we go. There's 4 triangles of F. My goodness, I'm going to have a lot to work on for this one. I wasn't expecting to get the large clue. Thank you, Cotton Cuts, for sending out the large clue to me. I'm super excited about that. I also forgot to mention, if you are putting this together, you are only going to receive 1 packet of fabric in each box or in each package each month. So if you didn't get the whole set at the beginning, that's because they only send out 1 packet at a time. So be on the lookout for more fabric next month for clue number 2. But let me go ahead and put all this fabric behind me on the table, and we'll go ahead and get started with our step number 1. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start off with step number 1. Remember that all of your seam allowances for this quilt are going to be 1/4 inch. So always work in 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm getting everything set up for, I'm just amazed with how much fabric this is. I wasn't expecting the large quilt, and I'm super excited that I get to try the large quilt this time. Okay, enough of that. All right, so 1/4 inch. This is section 1A. So this is clue 1A, section 1A. Either way you want to put it, it's the same thing. You will be making 8 of section 1A. The instructions are below and tell you how to make 8 sections at the same time. So our step number 1 is to join a large triangle of A, and I'm not doing this right. I got to put it like this, like the picture. So we're going to join a large triangle of A to a large triangle of D. We're going to make 16 of these, and they measure 4.5 by 4.5 when you're all set and done. So I'm going to go ahead and put those together just like that. We're basically just making half square triangles, and we're going to make 16 of them, and I'm going to come back here when it's time to press everything out. And also, I also notice here, interesting, it doesn't list which way to press, but it does have an arrow. So we'll get to that whenever it's time to press all these out. But the arrow tells us which direction we are ironing our seams in. So I'm going to go ahead and take this over to my sewing machine and get started. Okay, I have sewn all those half square triangles together, and it doesn't specify in the directions, but it does have the arrow. Let me see if I can, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but on your instructions there's an arrow that's pointing from A to D, and that indicates which directions that you're going to be pressing your seams, even though it doesn't list it in the directions there. So I'm going to be pressing this from the A square. Oh, and I totally did that backwards. I sure did. See, I pressed all of mine from my A fabric. No, I did that right. Yeah, I was afraid there for a second. I was like, oh geez. So it goes from my A fabric, which is the turquoise, over to the D fabric, which is the parrot fabric. Okay, scared myself there for a second. Oh man, so it should look like that whenever we're done. All right, so let me show you how I press my half square triangles. I take my fabric that I'm pressing towards and I put it on top. I have a mini iron, and what I do is I will take it and I will press up and then back down. And since this is a larger half square triangle, I'll turn it around and push it over and then back, and then I press it all out. And that's the best way to do half square triangles because they don't seem to warp as much whenever I go up, down, over, and back. That seems to really help keep them pretty square for the most part. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but for the most part, it works well. All right, so there's all 16 half square triangles. I'm gonna go ahead and put these off to the side, and we're gonna move on to step number 2. Moving on to step number 2, it says to sew a large square of A to the right of step number 1. We're going to make 16 of these, and we're going to press towards our A fabric whenever we get them all created. So we're just going to put our 2 pieces together just like that. So I'm going to plop my A fabric right on top, and I'm going to sew along this side right here, and I'm going to do that 16 times. All right, I've pressed almost all of them. This is the last one. And again, in the diagram, it shows us pressing towards our A square. So I'm going to open it up and press towards our A square, just like that. And now I have 16 of those units, and I'm going to go ahead and pull 2 of them for step number 3 and put the rest off behind me. All right, moving on to step number 3, it says to join step 2 units together. We're going to make 8. So this freaked me out a little bit when I looked at the picture because I didn't quite understand what I was doing at first. So you have your picture for step 3, and you have the arrows that point down. That's just showing you which direction you're going to be pressing it in. So don't think that you're going to be turning them vertically like that. That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is our top one is going to go A, D, A, just like this, and you're going to turn this one 180 degrees so that you form a bow tie right there in the center. And whenever you put these two together, what you're going to do is you're going to line up and nest the seams into place. So if you've never done a puzzle mystery quilt before or any other sewing, you're going to try and, since they're going in different directions, your pressing is going in two different directions. This one's going in this direction, this one's going in this direction. You can actually kind of nest or kind of put them so that they are kissing right there in the center. I know it's weird to say that, but they're kind of kissing right there in the center, and then we're going to sew. Of course, I'm going to do this, line these up a little bit better whenever I get to my sewing machine, but you're going to sew along this seam line right here, and we're going to turn our 16 that we just worked on, and we're going to turn them into 8 that look like this. I'll come back when it's time to press them all out. Okay, I have gone ahead and pressed 7 of them. I'm working on the 8th one now. We are pressing downwards. Like the picture shows on your diagram, it has the arrow pointing down, and it looks like I'm ironing the seam up. It doesn't really matter for this one because I can just flip it around, right? So it doesn't really matter. All of these are stacked, so that way there. Okay, so there is all 8 of our section 1A. You're going to go ahead and label these with either section or clue 1A, and we're going to go ahead and set these off to the side and start working on our section 1B. Okay, moving on to our section 1B, you'll be making 2 of these section 1B. The instructions below tell you how to make both at the same time. So step number 1 is to sew a large triangle of B to a large triangle of D. I'm not sure if you're even really going to be able to see the B fabric up against my tabletop here, but we're going to create more half square triangles using these, and we're going to make 4 of these in total. So we're just making half square triangles with our B fabric and our D fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and put 4 of these together, and I'll come back and press them. All right, I have sewn all 4 together, and now I am pressing. Remember, we go up, back down, over, and then press it all out, and it usually gives me a pretty good result. So there we go. So now we have all 4 of our half square triangles. Let's move on to step number 2. All right, moving on to step number 2 of section 1B, it says to join a large square of B to the right of step 1, and we're going to make 4 of these in total, just like we did with section 1A, except much less of it. And I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine and sew all 4 of these up. All right, I've gone ahead and sewn all 4 of those together, and now I'm pressing towards my B square, just like that. So I have 4 of those all together like so. Let's go ahead and move on to step number 3, and I'm not even going to cut the camera. I'm literally just going to do it right now because we've done this one already. We've done this on section 1A. So you're just going to put them together so it forms kind of the bow tie shape there, just like this. Again, we've taken our step number 2, and you keep one of them the same way, flip one of them 180 like that. I'm going to flip it over and make sure to sew on the correct side. So on this example right here, I'm just going to sew on the bottom. So I'm going to put those 2 together, nest my seams, make sure that they are nice and nested together, or kissing, or whatever you want to say. Sew across the bottom twice, not sew across the bottom twice, but I'm going to do that twice because I have 2 of these. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this twice, and I'll come back when I've finished that. All right, I've completed that, and now it is time to press them out. I've already pressed the first one, and now I'm going to press the second one here. It can be a little tedious to try and press these nicely because you are fighting some bulk, especially right in the center and off to the sides. So it can be a little tedious to try and get everything nice. See, this one is wanting to fight me a little bit, but that's okay. Just keep adding heat and pressure, and eventually you'll get it to do what you want it to do. But anyways, so there is our step number, what was that? That was step number 3, and we're done with that. It looks like we're going to be putting these off to the side, so I'm going to go ahead and set them off to the side, and we'll continue with step number 4. Okay, moving right along, we have, for step number 4, it says to join a small triangle of A to a small triangle of D, and we're going to make 8. We're going to make 8 of these smaller half square triangles, just like that. All right, I have sewn all 8 together, and now it is time to press. Again, we're pressing towards our D fabric, so even on the small half square triangles, I'll go up. It's easier to do it with my little easy mini press thing here. On the smaller ones, because it just takes a little effort, and bam, you've got your half square triangles done. All right, so there's all of our half square triangles. Let me rotate them all the right way. So you should have A fabric and your D fabric, just like that. Okay, so now it's time to move on to step number 5. All right, moving on to step number 5, it says to join a step 4 unit to each end of a D rectangle. Make sure that the D triangles are next to the D rectangle. So we want them to form kind of the top of the stop sign, or whatever you want to call that. You want to make sure that all of your fabric lines up. If you have your D triangles not touching, like this or like this, don't do that. You want them touching like so. So there you go. So it's going to look something like this whenever we're done. We're going to make 4 of these, and we're going to press them towards our D fabric in the center, our D rectangle. And like I said, we're making 4 of these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, I have sewn all 4 of those together, and we're pressing towards our center D rectangle. So I'm just taking each side and pressing inwards. If you're new to the Puzzle Mystery Quilt, you might notice here on my ones that I finished pressing that there's a little bit of a weird space up at the top there. It almost doesn't look like the points, oh, that's still hot. The points don't match up, or the point does match up here, but there's a little bit of extra space. This is your seam allowance, so if you see something weird like this, don't freak out. Whenever you sew 2 blocks together, this will be your seam allowance, so your corners fit right into where they're supposed to, so don't freak out about that. All right, I've gotten all 4 of that done. Let's move on to step number 6. All right, for step number 6, what we're going to do is we're going to join step 5 units to the left and right of step 3. So here's my step 3 unit right there in the center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach, whoops, there we go. I'm going to attach the ones that we just did, step 5, on the left and the right side so that all of my A's point outwards. We don't want them facing inwards. We want them all facing outwards. So we have a shape that looks like this. I'm going to sew 2 of these, and we'll just put that right there, and we'll just put that one right there. And I'm going to sew 2 of these, and then we'll be ready for step number 7. Okay, I have finished step number 6, and I'm pressing this. I'm pressing this so that way, I'm pressing this inwards towards our step 3. And I'm having a little difficulty around our points because there's so much bulk there. There's a lot of material coming into one little area, so I'm having to kind of flip it over and get it pressed out on the back a little bit. So just kind of work with it and just be gentle and you'll be just fine. And I keep finding the hottest parts of the fabric somehow with my fingers and trying to burn those off, but it's fine. I do have my iron set on the highest setting because that seems to really help out when pressing and getting good presses. It seems to really help out a lot. So there we go. All right, so I have 2 clues, or I have 2, goodness, I keep finding those hot spots. Okay, there we go. 2 of them are done. Let's move on to step number 7. Okay, moving on to step number 7, it says we're going to join a small triangle of A to a small triangle of F, and we're going to do that 4 times to make more half square triangles. Seems like we're doing a lot of half square triangles in this one. All right, so I'm just going to put those on there like that. We're going to do that 4 times, and then we will continue on to step number 8 whenever we're done. With that, we're pressing towards our F fabric, if I didn't mention that. We're going to press towards our F fabric, and I'll meet you back here when it's time to do the pressing. Okay, it's time to press these out. I've pressed 3 of them, time to do the 4th. Again, we're pressing towards our F fabric, and so I'm putting my F fabric up on the top, I'm going up, and then over, and we have our half square triangle, just like that. So I have 4 of those half square triangles all set up, and let me grab the fabric for step number 8. All right, moving on to step number 8. It says to join 2 step 7 units together at a small square of A and a small square of C onto each end. So basically we're just building something that looks something like this by combining our 2 in the center, putting a seam there, then we're going to add on a square of A fabric onto each end, and then to that we're going to add on another C fabric square to each end, and we're going to be pressing out from the center, and our center line is going to go over to the left from the front side. So it's going to look something like this, and we're going to make this 2 times. So I have enough fabric over on my table as well to make another one. So we're making 2 of these in total. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here when it's time to press it out. All right, I have pressed the first one, and now I'm pressing my second one. Remember, we're pressing away from the center. The center seam will be pressed towards the left when looking at it from the front, and you just keep pressing outwards to the left from there, and then the other side will be pressed out to the right. So we have most of them going on to the left on the left side, and then most of the ones on the right side will go to the right side. Not most, if all of them. Anyways, all right, there we go. So we have 2 strips that look like this. Really interesting patterns. This is so cool. I love the puzzle mystery quilts. They're just so amazing how they all come together. All right, let's go ahead and move on to step number 9. All right, here we go for step number 9. We're going to join step 8 unit to the top of a step 6 unit, and we're going to make sure that the A triangles are to the outside. So our A triangles are pointing away from the center of our step 6 unit, and it should look something like this. Mine are a little wonky. No matter how hard I try, I can never get them to do exactly what I want them to do, but anyways, it's close enough. So we're going to sew them onto the top just like that. We're going to do that 2 times because we've got 2 blocks. Oh, see, this is all weird, and that happens. I'm going to try and press that out and fix that, but I will come back and meet you back here when it's time to press what we just sewed on. All right, I have completed sewing those on, and one thing I forgot to mention is that there are some nice nested seams right here in the center and then on both sides here as well. Those will really help you line up your points nicely, and I'm glad that the way that this pattern works out, it does that, because it certainly helps me whenever I'm sewing these together to know that I've got them in the right place, and lining up that center one really helps me know that I've aligned my block correctly, and it just looks nicer. It just looks a whole lot nicer. Let's see, did that? Yep, that did perfectly, and oh boy, all right, I was not ready for how much I worked on today for this clue. There is definitely the larger quilts are a lot more than what I expected, but I'm so happy that I get to try them out this time, and All right, there we go. This is the completed clue number 1 for So Sweet in the large colorway of powdered. There you go. Don't forget to label these. The first one that I did was section 1A or clue 1A. It doesn't really matter which way you label it. And then the second one that I just completed just now, this one will be clue or section 1B. Thanks for joining me today as I sew clue 1 of the Puzzle Mystery Quilt. It was such a surprise to get the large quilt, but I'm so excited to see where this journey goes and to see what the quilt looks like in the end. Don't forget though, all the ambassadors do get the large and small clues, so we can help you if you need help. Just reach out to one of us and we'll be happy to help if we can. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so that way you get notified every time I post a new video or go live. I'm gonna sit here and eat my powdered donut that I got from the So Sweet Bakery, and I can't wait to see you next time.